Well, I think first and foremost, there needs to be a way of talking about the tools that students can deploy in these different disciplines in similar language. When we think about figuring out what kind of illness somebody has, we talk about diagnosing an illness. When we think about what it is that is a problem with a particular policy that we're trying to solve, we think about what is the root cause. When we think about dealing with an interpersonal matter, we say, well, what's at the heart of the issue? It's all the same thing. It's all the ability to understand what is the right problem that it is that we're trying to solve. And so sometimes something as simple as agreeing on naming a particular tool is the beginning. The second is to understand where context shows up and in what ways context colors, both in profound ways that really matter versus in superficial ways where they just become a layer on top of an analysis that can just be traversed. And that process of being able to understand the difference between one culture to another, one context to another, but using the same tool to analyze it actually is at the heart of interdisciplinarity, whether that discipline is a cultural one, a subject area, an academic area, a work versus a personal life, or what have you. Well, I think there's much to be said about the modalities in which students experience something. One of the great benefits of tackling local problems is that you can immerse yourselves in those problems. You can go to the source, you can see the impact, you can see how things actually occur. But that's not the only way in which we learn. There are all sorts of other modalities that we can draw connections to. So for example, if there is a local institution that deals with issues of migration, let's say, there are migration problems all over the world. And you can reference things that are a lived experience for the students and connect it with today's news. You can connect it with historical case studies. You can connect it with literature. You can connect it with biological and evolutionary needs of human beings and looking at migration patterns in that regard. And so there are always ways to connect what local experiences are, but you've got to be thoughtful in drawing the parallels between what the student is experiencing in their day-to-day or in experiential learning that you're designing compared to what global lessons you want them to take from it. Absolutely. We've seen a number of student projects, especially because we have a much larger set at the university level, at universities around the world. Of course, in Minerva University, almost everything the students do has that local global connection, right? They go from city to city, they apply their learning in various ways, they have a real observation of the difference in culture and how that impacts. And oftentimes students will do further research even after they graduate, sometimes for their capstone project. Oftentimes they will start companies around hypotheses that they have demonstrated in their learning over the years. At our partner Zayed University in the United Arab Emirates, beginning in their first year, students receive a set of challenges from employers as to how to deal with real-world global problems that the students then apply from their systems thinking approaches or try to solve. And so that has proven really, really interesting. And at Libertad, in Mexico, there is a real effort to integrate professional learning with undergraduate education, sometimes actually having professionals, executives, learn alongside undergraduates in the same class, and being able to bring some of that experience to bear. And so there's a lot of prototypes of getting students aware in this way. And I would love to see Huawei be innovative in this regard at the high school level, leverage what has been done at the university and professional learning level, and bring that ability to high school students. I think in multiple ways. First and foremost, we have to recognize that artificial intelligence is already performing tasks that we expect our graduate students to perform, and is doing so at acceptable levels. That means that given a few years, maybe a few months, it will be performing those tasks at an exceptional level. And that brings to bear the question of the whole nature of why it is that we are spending trillions of dollars a year training human beings to be degraded versions of what the machine can already do. So clearly, the status quo cannot last. And that then brings into focus the question of, well, then what is the role of humans moving forward? If AI will not just be able to assist humans, but will be able to produce solutions, analyses, results at incredibly high fidelity rates, what is left for the human to be left to do? And I would argue that what will have to be left for humans is discernment, is the ability to evaluate what it is that artificial intelligence produces and how to choose one path versus another. Now, some would say, well, why don't we just let artificial intelligence choose for us? And so I asked people, I said, well, what if artificial intelligence said that one person should pay a 37% tax rate and another person should be paying a 54% tax rate? Would we just say, okay, AI decided that and therefore we should do it? I don't think so. I don't think that people are just going to accept decisions that are made by artificial intelligence. They will look at the data, they will look at the output, they will see competing ideas, because artificial intelligence will rarely agree on the outcome, much like for the same reason that various experts will not agree on a particular outcome. They will have different perspectives, different goals, but because the quality of that analysis will be so much higher, because the breadth of offerings from artificial intelligence will be so pervasive, we are going to have to be trained to be discerning, to make decisions. And that puts a much greater burden on education, not a lowering one. One would think, oh, artificial intelligence is such that we just don't need to know that much because the AI will be able to do so many things and we won't have to do them. But I would argue quite the opposite. Because the AI is going to be able to do more and more and more, we have to have both a basis of knowledge, or at the very least an understanding of how to acquire the basis of knowledge, and the systems thinking in order to be able to evaluate what comes out of this new world. And that means education has to at once become more systematic, but also more rigorous, more demanding of students, but not in the concept of cramming information or absorbing a bunch of knowledge so they can remember it, but really in being able to exercise discernment over and over and over again in context after context. And so I think AI accelerates that need. It's not a coincidence And when I first built the Minerva model, it was with the incorrect assumption that AI was around the corner. I thought that it would take much, much less time for AI to be as pervasive as it was, because it was starting to show up in big enterprise algorithms. Adaptive learning at the time, this is back in 2009, 2010, was all the rage in the education circles. And so machine learning, certainly that element was already there, and there was this feeling like artificial intelligence was really around the corner. And the entire Minerva curriculum was built for a post-AI world. We were just about a decade too early in building it. The essence of a Minerva education, especially in the Minerva Baccalaureate, which is so intense in its sense-making and problem-solving framework, is not to make sure that students remember the difference between the black and the white, right? Figuring out what's true and false when it's binary, when it's clear-cut. I mean, there's of course some use in having a basis of knowledge, but ultimately those things can be looked up. The real art of a Minerva education is to be able to help students distinguish between the black and the gray. What are the things that are absolutely wrong, and why are they absolutely wrong, whereas some people think they may be right? And then what is the range of possibilities of what an optimal outcome could look like? And the gray is really where discernment comes in. It's exercising judgment as to figure out, why is it that this opportunity or this course of action has a higher likelihood of working in some circumstances, but not in others? How is it that the purpose and the motivation of what it is that I'm trying to do is going to be best served by this course of action, but I also need to optimize for all of these other perspectives and other courses of action? AI can be an extremely powerful tool in laying out some options, but if you don't understand how to get down to first principles and build back up, then you're going to make the wrong judgment call over and over and over again, because you'll rely on things that an AI will say, well, this has a higher likelihood of working, but not necessarily taking into account the things that are hard for you to articulate to make sure that the AI provides you a more optimal answer, or simply if it cannot. In our conception of education, every teacher is a participant in the student's educational journey. They contribute a component to that educational journey. But even collectively, all of the teachers together are not solely responsible for the student's journey. The institution has responsibility for the student's journey by setting out the standards and the requirements for what it is that the student will be able to graduate knowing. The institution sets up the rest of the curriculum, right? And what that looks like beyond a teacher's particular purview, where the teacher's purview fits within it. The larger community of learning scientists and knowledge experts should be informing how that curriculum gets put together, which is of course a big part of what the Minerva Baccalaureate does. And there need to be tools that can wrap that process around and that enable the teacher to offer a more engaging classroom environment and provide students the kind of feedback that they need in order to interweave the kind of learning or feedback that they have throughout their learning journey. And that is what Forum, which is the technology that we developed, does. It enables the teacher to have a lesson plan that is connected with the overall student learning journey. It enables the teacher to engage students, not just one-on-one, but to make sure that all students are engaged for the majority of their class time. And it gives the teacher a mechanism through which to record the assessment and feedback that the teacher wants to provide the student and put that into a larger whole of the student's profile and learning journey. And that is real power. It gives the teacher, alongside the significant training that we provide for the teachers, and data around how they're performing and being able to continuously improve, it gives them the tools to be significantly more successful. I would posit that foundational to an international school is an understanding that we are in this together, that there is a primacy to being human, and that if we think that our future can be successful in a win-lose, I win by making somebody else lose, I'm going to succeed by making somebody else fail, we simply don't understand the interconnected world that we live in. All of the major problems that we face are global supply chains, peace, alliances, trade, migration, human prosperity, health, global warming, global education, the natural resources and their use, the exploration of parts unknown in the deep seas or in outer space. These are not national endeavors. They're certainly not community endeavors, right? These are endeavors that we have to pursue as humans. And to me, the international schools are at the forefront of that view of the world. And the countries, ironically enough, that have the greatest international outlook and understanding are, I believe, going to be the ones that are the most successful, not by trying to optimize for themselves, but by trying to optimize for the system. Minerva was founded as a humanist university. It is not a coincidence that the majority of, not the majority, that there is no majority student at Minerva. Students come from all over the world. It is not a coincidence that our first 20 institutional partners come from a dozen different countries. It is not a coincidence that our entire approach has always been this view that the wiser the world is, wherever that wisdom lies, the better it is for humanity. Our mission is to nurture critical wisdom for the sake of the world, not for the sake of an individual, a community, a city, a country, or a region, right? We reject the idea that you can have wisdom, true wisdom, be deployed and not have that have positive effect for everybody in the world. And so for us, that ideal, that perspective is that the more you are a systems thinker, the more you understand the second and third order effects, the unintended consequences, the emergent properties of those decisions. And the more you understand that your own life is intertwined with the collective lives of everybody else on the planet, the more wisdom will ensure that you design solutions that are going to be sustainable and not positive. Well, I think first and foremost, you have to understand how system dynamics work. And a high school curriculum can absolutely do that. But you also have to really think through when you make sense of the world, when you seek to problem solve, when you seek to work along others and understand different perspectives, that solutions require iteration. They require thinking through not just a simple answer, but again, it's navigating the gray, navigating what are seemingly correct choices or correct pathways, but then thinking several steps ahead and realizing that some of them will wind up having some pretty deleterious or negative effects. And so that discipline, the ability to steep the students, to nurture the students over that 3-year course of learning, to really deepen how broadly it is that they can apply what it is that they learn ensures that the students can think 3, 4, 5 steps ahead.